Hey guys, I want to talk today about Isaac the digger of wells. I know that sounds really boring, but wow, what we learn from that simple statement and how you and I can deal with conflict in our lives. Listen in today.
Welcome to Everyday Truth with Kurt Skelly. We believe the Bible is true and relevant to everyone, everywhere, every day. If today's conversation is a help to you, take a moment to leave a review or share it with a friend. Thanks for listening. Now, let's join Kurt for today's episode.
Hey guys, welcome back here in the studio in Fredericksburg, and I got this postcard from Doug the motorcycle guy. So Doug, you are the best. And he was up in some of my neck of the woods, actually, Nova Scotia, the Northeast, actually, some of the most beautiful places on earth, and doing a lot of riding all through that area. So Doug, thanks for the postcard and for being so faithful to the podcast. We're in Genesis 26, and I love this section. You know, sometimes when you talk about Isaac in the Bible, you talk about the digger of wells. You think, well, that's kind of a boring life, just to dig wells. But when you think about the land of promise, and that much of it, at surface glance, is just barren. It's dry, it's sandy, it's desert-like, and without water, nothing can be accomplished. And one of the great promises about the promised land is that the desert will bloom. And what's really interesting is if you go to Israel today and go to some of those southern areas that were desert, they're blooming. Why? Because Israel does a great job with drip irrigation. They actually developed that technology. And the fact is, there is water. It's just not readily seen. It's down below the surface. And how often is that true in our own lives? That there is blessing, that there is provision, that there is God and what he can do, but sometimes it's just not readily noticeable. And I see in Genesis chapter 26 some great principles about this man, Isaac. Now, remember, he had gone to the place called Gerar. He was on his way to Egypt. God warned him, don't make this mistake. Your dad made this mistake. You stay here, you trust me. And he does stay there, but he does make a mistake. So he obeys God, and then he shows a lack of faith by lying about his wife. And God delivers him, just like God had delivered Abraham. And watch what happens now in verse number 12. So Abimelech charges his people, don't touch this man or his wife. So he has protection in this land of the Philistines. So while he's there, the Bible says in verse 12 that Isaac sowed in that land. Now, you're not going to sow in a land unless you have water. So he sowed in that land and received in the same year 100-fold. So think about this. He is planting crops in a land where people live. The Philistines are nearby. I've been in this very region, very near where the ark came home, Bet Shemesh. Some of you have been with me there, that area. And the Bible says that he receives 100-fold. That is an unbelievable success. 100-fold, 100 times. That is the apex of success. And the Bible says the Lord blessed him. Well, that's the only possible explanation. God just blesses him as he sows in that land. And watch this, verse 13, and the man waxed great, or grew great, and went forward and grew until he became very great. So you see the exponents of success there? He's great, he's moving forward, he's very great. So obviously God is just doing things on the behalf of Isaac. And let's face it, Isaac has not been the most faithful guy. Isaac has certainly displayed some elements of faithfulness, but the fact is, God blesses us often in our lives in spite of ourselves. Not necessarily because we're so faithful or because we're so careful to obey him, because Isaac has made some bad decisions in this very chapter, but God is blessing him. Why? Because God made this promise, and God wants to use this nation. And Isaac's beginning to see that my dad's God is my God. Look at verse 14. So great success, great agricultural success. And understand in those days that that's the way you would measure success, by how many flocks you would have and what kind of crop you had. Well, that was the measurement of success. And it says in verse number 14, he had possession of flocks, possession of herds, great store of servants, bunch of people that worked for him, herdmen, all of that. And then watch this, and the Philistines envied him. And isn't that not just like human nature? Just as soon as God blesses, just as soon as your revenues increase, just as soon as there are material blessings to indicate God's blessing in your life, all of a sudden, people are at odds with you. And the Bible says the Philistines envied him. And envy in the Bible is such a deep and troublesome sin. We don't talk a lot about envy, but remember, it was envy that drove Cain to kill Abel. It was envy that drove the brothers of Joseph to want to kill him and then eventually sell him out of that pit. It was envy that drove Saul to maniacally chase David for all those years and want to kill him. In fact, when you read about envy in the New Testament, it is always precursor to murder. You look at the long list of sins in Romans 1, it's envying, murder, debate, deceit, envy, murder, envy, murder. You look at the works of the flesh in Galatians chapter 5, and it talks about envyings, murderers, drunkenness, reveling. It just seems like envy precedes murder. It's like envy is often murder's motive. So here the Philistines envied him, and the Bible says, for all the wells which his father's servants had digged in the days of Abraham his father, the Philistines had stopped them, filled them with earth. So how is Isaac caring for these fields? How is he, physically speaking, how is he seeing such great agricultural success? How does he have all of this grass for his herds and all of this? Well, because he has water. So what do the Philistines do? They envy him, and then they fill up his wells with dirt. Well, that is a murderous thing. I mean, you're going to kill his crops. You're going to kill his animals. You're going to threaten his life. Why? Because water is life. So envy causes them to do some really evil things. Verse 16, and Abimelech, so the word Abimelech in the Bible is not necessarily a name. It's more of a title, like a dynastic title, like Pharaoh is a title, like king is a title. So Abimelech said unto Isaac, go from us, for thou art much mightier than we. So not only are people envious of him and acting upon that envy, but they're also intimidated by him. Well, he's getting too big, too mighty. We don't want you around here. And watch what happens, and we'll kind of end with this section, but look at verse number 17. And Isaac departed. So Isaac didn't fight. Isaac didn't try to staunchly stand for his rights, and this is not fair. No, Isaac, I think, obeyed that New Testament principle that you and I ought to obey, and that is, as much as lies within us, we ought to try to live at peace with all men. And Isaac was willing to say, okay, I'll move. And so he departs thence, and he pitched his tent in the valley of Gerar and dwelt there. Okay, I'll move over to this place. And what does he do? Well, he digs again the wells of water, which they had digged in the days of Abraham his father. So more work for him, another location, but he wants to be a good neighbor. So he goes, he redigs these wells from Abraham's day. For the Philistines had stopped them after the death of Abraham. So these Philistines, they didn't want any of Abraham's family near them. And he called their names after the names by which his father had called them. So Isaac redigs the well. That's a frustrating thing when you have to redo what has been done. And yet, here's Isaac, good attitude. He doesn't obstinately stand for his rights, but he goes to the valley of Gerar. He begins to redig these wells. Now, you would think that would be the end of it. But look at verse number 19. And Isaac's servants digged in the valley and found there a well of springing water. So not just a well, a normal well, but now a spring. This would be the rarest of finds and the most valuable of finds. It's a spring of living water. And not only is the water better, but the resource is better. So, wow. So here's Isaac, who's being mistreated, but is not reacting improperly to the mistreatment, and God is blessing him even more. God is in charge of water. And by the way, in your life, don't always be so concerned about everything being fair and this is not right. And I can't. There's a God in heaven. He knows. And sometimes when we just defer, don't fight about it, God blesses in other ways and sometimes even in better ways. That's what's happening here. But that doesn't solve the problem, because verse number 20, and the herdmen of Gerar did strive with Isaac's herdmen. So now the people that live in that valley are mad. And because they have this spring of water and they think that valley belongs to them, that the water is ours. And he, that is Isaac, called the name of the well Esek. Do you see that there in verse number 20? Esek, which means quarrel, because they strove with him. So he didn't fight about it. He just digged another well. That's a lot of digging. And they strove for that one too. So Isaac keeps on moving on. God keeps on blessing him. And so he digs this second well in the valley of Gerar, and he called the name of it Sitnah. And what does Sitnah mean? It means enmity. So quarrel and enmity, because people are just not liking this. They're claiming it for themselves. And so what does he do? Verse 22, he removed from thence. He moves on. He digged another well, and for that they strove not. So finally, he moves far enough away. He gets outside of the circumference of their territorialism. And sometimes that's what we have to do, get out of the circumference of people's territorialism. And he dug this next well, and they strove not. And he called the name of it Rehoboth, or broad place. Now there's room. And he said, for now the Lord hath made room for us, and we shall be fruitful in the land. And he went up from thence to Beersheba, the well of Sheba. And that's where Abraham had been. And we'll pick up the story in Beersheba on our next episode. So Isaac, a digger of wells. It tells me a whole lot more than a hole in the ground. It tells me that Isaac was a man that knew how to deal with conflict, that knew how to trust God, and saw God bless him because of it. So we'll stop right there, verse number 23, and we'll finish the chapter, Lord willing, next episode. Until then, God bless you.